Welcome to your PMA Pro membership, your gateway to continued professional product marketing development. Whether you're new to the industry or an experienced practitioner, we've covered all bases with our variety of specialist content, including on-demand presentations, templates, exclusive content, mentors, toolkits, learning paths, and more. So let's take a look at exactly what could be all yours as a pro member. Starting with exclusive articles, jam-packed with in-depth insights from experts at companies like Google, LinkedIn, HubSpot, and Drift. And we add new pieces to your dashboard every single week. Your template hub is packed with 50 plus vetted and tested templates and frameworks designed to streamline fundamental processes. Used by companies such as Slack, Microsoft, Twitter, and TikTok, rest assured, you and your team will be equipped with the best materials to enhance your practice. And better yet, we add new templates into your plan every month. Here at PMA, we have a busy event schedule year-round. And as a pro member, you'll get access to every presentation on demand to enjoy whenever and wherever you please. Better yet, you won't have to pay a cent to attend our virtual festivals and summits. The discounts don't stop there either. As a pro member, you'll also get 10% off our suite of certification programs. After a structured learning experience, then our product marketing learning paths and toolkits are for you. Whether you've got a positioning overhaul on the horizon, want to upskill in sales enablement, or plan for next quarter's product launch, each toolkit and path features presentations, templates, and guides that'll help you hit the ground running and continue your professional development furthermore. Moving on to our peer councils. They're the perfect platform for live, virtual interaction, and the monthly gatherings allow you to connect with an intimate pod of product marketing leaders to strategize and collaborate. And last but not least is our mentor program. Whether you want to be a mentor, mentee, or both, you can accelerate your personal and professional growth by learning from product marketing heavyweights all over the world. So, with product marketing teams at globally recognized brands such as IBM, TikTok, Uber, and Amazon reaping the benefits of the stellar content on offer, why shouldn't you? Sign up for your PMM Pro membership and access a never-ending flow of tried, tested, and recommended tactics, learn from the leading lights in the industry, fast-track your professional development, and accelerate your career trajectory.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Hardison, and I am Calendly's head of product marketing and the head of brand and content team. I'm going to talk today about how you can use customer research to influence not only your marketing, but also the direction of your company. So we know that we're supposed to listen to others, that we're supposed to do customer research. You've got people telling us, like Peter Drucker for centuries, that if you listen to others, it can be one of your greatest strengths. Yet it's very difficult, right? It's just like when you talk to your doctor and they say, are you getting enough rest? Are you eating right? And we don't do it. So what's happened a lot of times, instead of doing this customer research, we've basically trusted, the highest paid person in the room. They often say, like, my instinct is that we should do X, and so we do X. Or maybe, we're in a sales-led company where we trust the salespeople, and they are a great source of customer research. They're on the front lines talking to customers just like customer success teams are. But what's happened along the way, particularly I think in the last 10 years, is that many companies, particularly like product-led companies, where they have research teams, product managers that have been trained in research, they started to push us to really trusting data, particularly quantitative data over qualitative data. And there's a whole host of companies out there that are helping with this. A company like Lytics, for example, can pull all kinds of customer data together and see, how has somebody visited the website? How have they engaged with our product? Have they bought from us before? Have they unsubscribed from an email newsletter? And we can use all that data about a person to make decisions. But along the way, video conferencing got easier to use, right? And so while we were starting to trust kind of more behavioral data, this quant data, it started to become easier to be able to interview customers from afar. And we've seen this more than ever right now during the pandemic. So there's been kind of this like clash of cultures between the quantitative data people who really trust like what someone's doing in the product versus people who want to do, say, 10 interviews of customers and look at it from more of a qualitative perspective. But I really believe that these two teams can work together better than ever, and we can really hug it out. So I looked around for some kind of inspirational quote to kind of really use to direct this whole presentation, and I stumbled on this one by Wendy Newman, where she said, "Stories give life to data, and data gives authority to stories." And I thought that really works in terms of showing how we can collaborate. So one of the things you often see is that in like a fast-moving startup or fast-moving company, qualitative research will start without the behavioral data, right? And so they'll do some type of casting wide of the net, and it takes months to sort through, why did this customer say this one thing and this other customer said this other thing. And what I found is good to do is if you start with the quantitative data and see like, 20 people are doing this one thing, or 1,000 people have mentioned this in a survey, it often helps you make a hypothesis that you can then go validate and see behind the numbers with quantitative data, okay? So once you have kind of this quantitative data and the qualitative data mixed together, you can make a hypothesis next about what kind of growth experiment you should do. And that growth experiment doesn't have to be a huge campaign where you get the whole marketing team behind it, but just do one thing, like run a webinar about something, run one email campaign about it, and see how that performs. And then you can make a case for shifting more budget and more marketing initiatives for that hypothesis. Give you an example. So I was at Lytics, the company I mentioned earlier, customer data platform, and we found that most of our clients in the early days when I joined were e-commerce companies. And that was very interesting to me. And I thought, I wonder why that is. Well, they are kind of savvy companies when it comes to technology, and it's easy to work with other savvy companies. They were well funded, right? And so they had the money and the budgets at the time to be able to spend on new tools. But we were finding that, they were churning quite a bit. Maybe they were going out of business because they were startups. Maybe they weren't getting funding for the next round. And this was starting to really bother us. Like, why are we bringing in tons of e-commerce companies and they're naturally attracted to us, but yet they're churning? And so I looked at the one other company that was performing really well within this space, and it was a trade media company. This was a group of publications for various types of like firefighters and defense folks and so on and so forth. And we had two companies within this space. One was kind of trailblazing, like I mentioned, and there was another company that was kind of following their lead. And I thought, I wonder why they're using this. And so we started doing qualitative research, right? We noticed that by talking to them, that they had a special need for a customer data platform, that they had two use cases. Not only did they want to personalize their website using customer data, like don't show this to a company who's already purchased, for example, on the website, but they also were able to sell this behavioral data to advertisers using the platform. And so we would have never uncovered that by not looking at the quantitative data and the qualitative data. So we were able to get the company to focus on what looked like an old line industry, trade media, did not fit our culture as a fast moving modern startup, right? And to be able to convince engineers and design and product management to not only have our focus on this as a marketing strategy, but also as a product development strategy. And so we started building features specifically for trade media publications. And as a result, we were able to 10x revenue within 2 years, okay? Another example, Envision. Vision is a design platform for designers as well as developers today and so forth. And in the very beginning days of when I was working with them, I was noticing that a lot of our work was for one chief persona, and that was designers. And the idea was like, if we win the designer, then they'll take this collaboration tool for design also to their developer colleagues and to others, right? And it's really hard to market to multiple personas. It can sometimes dilute the message, was the idea. So one of the things we uncovered, though, in doing some research, was that for every one designer, there could be 100 developers. Okay, and so what is that? Is there an opportunity there to grow for developers? But wouldn't that fight against our work and trying to focus on this chief persona? So what did we do? We started doing some qualitative research. We didn't just look at the quantitative market data. We started talking to some of these customers. So we talked to, for example, a software engineer at Atlassian to find out how they use InVision together with their designer colleagues. Not only did this research really start to help convince the rest of the content team and others who've been chiefly focused on designers before, help them decide to also build content for developers, it helped us influence the product team as well. And so what the product team did was they started to build and really refine our tools for developers, such as the tool Inspect. Third example, Clearbit. So many of you probably use Clearbit. It's a business data company for marketers and sales folks and others. And initially, we were trying to figure out with this new product we had called Clearbit Advertising, should we focus on self-serve companies, right? Where you sign up for free and you upgrade with your credit card and so forth, or should we focus on sales-led companies? That's a larger portion of the market in terms of numbers of companies. And it was something that we kind of didn't know what to do, right? On one hand, our instinct was to focus on the self-serve companies because they were like us. Culture was very similar, right? They were engineering and design driven. They would try new things like Clearbit Advertising. They had oftentimes consumer grade marketers who wanted to use things like Facebook ads, which Clearbit Advertising was really good at. And we had an emotional attachment to them. Never forget, sometimes companies choose to work with a certain type of customer because they feel like that customer is just like them. And then we looked at the cons and we said, these are often financially successful companies, but it's a small TAM, the ones that are completely self-serve. And oftentimes they move to the next tool. So some new tool comes along, the early adopter types in these companies will just move to that one. So it's not necessarily a market that has a lot of retention. We then looked at the sales-led companies, and what we found with them was that they had really large budgets, but it was tough to break into them. It would take a few years. Sometimes they were more conservative buyers that didn't just try anything that the self-serve side did. They would want to make sure that it was proven out. There was lots of customer case studies and so forth. But once you landed them, they would often stick. Now, one of the challenges of these folks is that, they had seasoned staff that had their own preferred tools and so forth. And they had less kind of consumer grade marketers on staff who might use Facebook for marketing, which was something that Clearbit Advertising really focused on. So what did we do? We did qualitative research. So we didn't just look at the behavioral data and say like, those self-serve marketers right there are using this app in the testing stage more than the sales-led ones were. We got on the phone with these marketers and we were able to kill two birds with one stone here. Not only are we doing this research in these sales calls together with our sales team, but we were able to help close the deals. We were marketers for Clearbit, closing deals with fellow marketers. So that's a little hack I recommend. Don't just do qualitative research, do some research on sales calls to help your sales team. And we kept track of the patterns that we noticed in a spreadsheet and saw that like, okay, this kind of self-serve company, they like this one feature, this other one likes this other feature. Where are we seeing kind of patterns here? Sales-led companies tend to like this feature. They tend to have this kind of marketer on staff, and really analyzed the demographics and the behavior of these companies. What we were able to do is really decide what kind of company we should focus on. And what we decided was it should be companies with a lot of website traffic. These are often self-serve companies, but sometimes they can be sales-led. And this also helped us kind of determine the direction of the product development for Clearbit Advertising. Okay, last example. So I work for Calendly. Some of you might know of Calendly. It actually comes in really handy for this qualitative research. A lot of product managers and product marketers use it to say like, hey, customer would like to talk. Share your availability if you like, but here's some times that I'm available. I'm going to embed them in an email for you. And what's interesting is like, that's probably most of our idea of what Calendly does, but there's a lot more to it. It can get pretty complex. There's all kinds of like reminders you can send before and after a meeting. There's all kinds of team scheduling features for sales teams, all kinds of integrations and so forth. And so, one of my favorite things about working for Calendly is I can just go on Twitter a lot of times and do some basic customer research. This is another hack I recommend. You don't have to like schedule 10 calls and get permission from CS to call folks and spend hours on there. You can simply go on to social media and you probably will find your customers talking and sharing their jobs to be done, sharing their feature requests and so forth right there. And if you want to dive deeper, you can contact them on LinkedIn and schedule a call. But there's a lot of research to be had on social media. Now, this social media taught me about some of our more early adopter customers, the kind of people that spend time on social media and talking about tools. But I really want to go beyond early adopters. I want to reach the mainstream. I want everyone using Calendly, not just early adopters. And so I started looking at some email correspondence. And as it happens, we send out a monthly newsletter, and I get all kinds of responses to this monthly newsletter. And this was one from a person named Doreen. And she basically said, hey, look, I'm old. It's a lot to learn this technology. Do you have like a beginner class? And the idea went off to me. It's like, wow, the product-led growth person in me thinks that the product should onboard everybody. And you don't need training for that. You don't need humans teaching humans, but that's not necessarily true for all facets of society. And so what we decided to do is do an experiment. And we did a webinar, and we had us in product marketing do this webinar every week where we present. But we also asked the customer support team and knowledge management teams to answer questions for these folks in the chat, okay? And what we noticed after doing this for a few weeks as an experiment, not as something we just do because we think we should do it, we ran an experiment, and we noticed that those who attended was more than double in terms of activation for first meeting connected than those who didn't attend the webinar. And it was even better for those who watched the webinar. We would have never decided to do this if we wouldn't have gotten curious and read some of this customer research. Didn't involve interviewing any customers. It simply involved just kind of reviewing their correspondence. So I hope this was very helpful for you and help you see how you can use customer research that doesn't have to be super complex. It can be something like checking out social media, reading email correspondence, but can even be better if you combine it with qualitative and quantitative data. Thanks a lot for listening to me. Again, my name is Jeff Hardison. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn.